Hey, I'm Sarah Smith, family doctor, clinical day advisor, and the chatting coach. Welcome back to Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast, where we're going to be interviewing peers or world experts who can help us think about our clinical day in a way that is more sustainable and create time for our lives outside of medicine. Hey listeners, I value you being here. Please, I encourage you to leave a review. I'm going to be reading out a review each month, and that person can have a one-on-one call with me to have a chat. And I think that is a great way to reward you as a listener. Also, as you like and subscribe to this podcast, it helps get our message out to other physicians and clinicians who are struggling. Thank you so much for your reviews, and I look forward to reading them out here on the podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today we have with us Dr. Pam Pappas, who is going to be sharing lots of cool information. Welcome, Pam.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about you and what you do in the world and where you came from in medicine, all the things.
Oh my, well, I am in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I am a psychiatrist for more years than I want to admit. And in that psychiatristness, I have treated tons of physicians. That's been my heart work ever since I was a psychiatry resident. So I was doing that all the time. And anywhere I was working, people would just kind of come to me for this. But along about 2008, I realized that there were a ton of people who didn't need to be diagnosed or come to see a psychiatrist and be treated, but they were still sweating it or hurting out in the world. And I started thinking, well, how do I make myself accessible to them and offer them things that can be useful? So I started taking multiple coaching training programs that I have gone through 8 different ones. That's part of who I am. I am relentless about trying to understand how best to serve people when they are going through burnout, they've just been fired, they're going through some life transition that they're scared about or fearful about. I think I've got it. But the other reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I have gone through burnout multiple times, and there wasn't what I needed there was therapy. I've been to a bunch of different psychiatrists for the various issues. You said all the things. And sometimes that was useful. Therapy was useful. And there was something that I needed somebody to help me consolidate what all had happened to me and how I could bring it forward. But coaching wasn't a thing yet, at least not in medicine. Now, if you would be in corporate world, that would be a requirement for every promotion. Oh, you're going to get coached, and you're going to go, oh, okay, I'll show up. But doctors have been real slow about adopting this. And so that's another reason why I've gotten involved in this. And so now, the other piece of who I am is an integrative psychiatrist, very experienced and skilled in classical homeopathy and many spiritual learnings. And last year, I closed my formal medical practice to make more room for doctors who are going through what they're going through. And that's my full-time love now. And it is fun. Of course, it's painful sometimes, but I just love walking with people while they're growing and they're transforming.
Okay, that's a great start. Like it. Thank you. Tell us a bit about then your journey and those experiences of burnout. What did they look like for you? What was it that you were seeking as you were going through that, and how did you get through those?
Well, one thing to understand is I've worked in multiple different kinds of environments, from academia to very large multi-specialty hospital systems to integrative medicine clinics to solo private practice. And I know how to burn out in every friggin' one of those.
I
Now,
like that you say that because I think that's true of many of us is like, well, I'll just move and that will fix this. And then you're like, it's happening again. And then you move again. Yes.
yeah, that's a fallacy, isn't it? Because we think we can fix it by uh monkeying with the externals. Sometimes that's true if you've got a very toxic, medical director or something that hates your guts and but won't say it, and meanwhile, making your life miserable. But this can happen. So my experience, I loved academia, and I was working until 10:30, 11 at night, seeing consults in the hospital,
Mm,
and then going home and kind of sleeping, but worried about, did I document everything,
mhm,
all of that. Um, the work that I mostly did was um, consultation liaison psychiatry, which means you're on for everything for everybody at any time.
mhm.
And so that experience was just extreme fatigue and helplessness, hopelessness feeling, and thinking, God, I really suck. And
Mm,
I mean, so there was that. And um, I rescued myself by deciding I was going to stop what was at that time an associate professor position, and decided I was going to move to Arizona and I was going to study integrative medicine through a naturopathic medical college. And I thought, well, that's going to teach me about healing. But what I ended up finding was that they didn't know any better about it than I did. Actually, I already knew more than I realized that I did. But the sensible thing for me to have done going through that turnstile of burnout would have been to take some time off, right? Rest and whatnot. No, I go to a full-on, naturopathic medical school program that's here in Arizona. And on top of it, I decide, oh, I'm going to go study at this homeopathic school at the same time. There was a psychiatrist developing a homeopathic school. And that's going to kind of make me feel like there was a reason for me leaving my, you know,
mhm.
hoop-de-doo position where I secretly felt like I wasn't good enough, like,
Yeah. I'm interested about that reflection that you had. So you're seeing patients, you're seeing then consultations, you're on call 24/7, and your reasoning in that you said was, I'm not good at this. I'm not doing a good job. I'm not good enough. And I'm like,
mhm,
how did you get that out of I'm giving 24/7 cover, so clearly I'm doing a bad job? Like
mm.
that's really pushing the human physiology into places that it doesn't want to be, right? When
you
you're working
that
those long hours, getting poorer and poorer sleep, and our brain comes up with this story of, oh, it's me, I'm not good enough. And I think that's such a common thing that happens when we're maybe it's common because we're so dang fatigued, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on why that happened. Why was that the reflection that you came up with?
that's a really beautiful observation that you made. And one thing that I think about why we would come to that story about ourselves is that medical culture inculcates us to be perfect and to never show weakness, but we got a real skewed idea about what's weakness. Weakness would just mean needing some sleep, but that's messed up. One of my psychiatry chairmen prided himself in never sleeping. He would write his papers at 2 in the morning and then think that I and all the rest of the the department should do like him. So there's that constant self-comparison with, well, he made it to chair and he's a, super professor. So what's wrong with me? I must really be awful. So there's an assumption process that goes on, that part of it is how we emulate those that we admire or that have seemed to have gotten up the hierarchy in some way. But there's a lot of us that come into medicine with certain needs to prove ourselves or feeling not good enough from the get-go. And then in that case, the medical model, the medical culture just hypertrophies whatever shame and awfulness that you've already got going on.
Mm.
But that you don't dare say to anybody else. I mean, you don't ask anybody, gosh, do you ever feel this way? I mean,
I feel like a lot of places there's been this, well, if somebody created this position, so therefore it must be possible. Like somebody created this opportunity to be on call 24/7 and thought it was okay. So clearly I'm the problem if I can't do the job.
Well, unless you realize that residency programs or academic programs were created by a guy that was using cocaine a lot. And I mean, I would probably be able to do stupid things faster if I took cocaine too. And maybe, maybe I would be able to do the things, but I noticed that I couldn't. And there was a great sense of isolation because I was running around, seeing the patients and treating or teaching the residents, but I felt like a fraud because I don't want them to experience what I'm experiencing. I'm just modeling the same junk. I don't. So it was horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Were you talking to anyone about it? Like, was there
Huh.
any, prior to saying I'm out because this sucks, was there any, can we have another think about this? Can I have a week
Oh,
off? Like, was there any banter about, gee whiz, this isn't fun?
there were a couple of colleagues that I talked with. I had also one of my 5 psychiatrists in my life was there at that place, and his comment in listening to my history and what I was experiencing says, Pam, you need you need refuge. And I'm going, yeah, I bloody well do. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Mm.
But again, that coaching wasn't a thing, so I wasn't talking with a coach. I had a couple of colleagues that I admired that were not part of the department where I was going haywire. Um, and they were helpful. But I made that decision to cut loose
Mm.
largely on my own. And I think if I had had better support or some support, I probably would have given myself a little time before plunging whole hog into the kind of additional learning programs for becoming a naturopathic doctor in addition to my conventional medicine. So I was going to be an MD-ND.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, that'll be better. And it was
Yeah.
totally delirious is what I was.
Yeah. I'm curious if in medicine we've had the almost apprenticeship models, mentorship models, and so perhaps that's why we didn't need or thought we didn't need or didn't think about executive coaching type roles for medicine because we have these mentors above us. But as you said, your mentor's up at 2 a.m. writing papers and thinks this 24/7 on call is perfectly acceptable. So you're getting told from above, this is possible, this is possible, this is possible.
Well, it is and it isn't, because what I thought of when you said that was, a client that I've had who was given a job that for all intents and purposes, if you were logical, of course it ought to be possible for the person to do this. But then realizing, oh, I was hired to do the stuff that nobody else wanted to do. It's kind of like they put it together in a so-called shit sandwich. And that's supposed to be my lunch and not complain about it,
Mm,
but didn't realize that that's what had been put together until they were in it and trying to keep their head above water, and it ain't working.
mm. Yeah, yeah. All
So I
right.
think you expect it to be logical, and it's not
Mm,
sometimes. And hopefully you can find a department, whether it's academic or a big hospital system, that is that's got some sanity to it. Because and they exist, but you got to fish around.
I think we're seeing a few more of those ideas of wellness and starting to put together places where they start reflecting on what are we doing to our people and is this good enough and should we be doing more and how do we help them? We're seeing that starting, but not every organization's got that. I also see you teaching your registrars saying, or fellows saying secretly to yourself, don't be like me, but you're still teaching them in the ways. And so we're still seeing that
Yes.
that mentorship pattern isn't helping because our mentors are struggling and our mentors haven't been taught the skills to potentially for how to keep this newcomer from doing exactly the same cycle that I'm in.
Well, I think that self-recognition was one of the big reasons why I left.
Mm,
And I didn't think at the time I was totally leaving conventional academic medicine, but you know what? That's what ended up happening.
mhm,
And because I just didn't want anybody to emulate me, I was going nuts.
mm, yeah.
You mentioned the physiology, and it was totally antithetical to uh, to healthy living.
Mm,
The mentors, I mean, some of them thought that, say, integrative medicine, which is what I was hired for in that last position, for them, integrative medicine meant you give a paper that lists supplements for symptoms, and that's all it is.
right.
They had no understanding that what I was going for was, well, okay, so what is how did this situation start with this patient, and connecting with the broader healing capacities that all of us have. Uh, and it's a lot more than giving them a handout. It's walking through what is the history, and what is it that this person wants. Those those departmental people were clueless about that, and they thought I was nuts for doing what I did. They thought, well, all you already know everything, so what possibly could you learn that's more? A lot of physicians don't imagine that coaching, for instance, could be fruitful for them because they're supposed to already know how to find themselves, or find a place that they can feel half fulfilled in doing what they do and paying off their educational loans. Um, but sometimes you just got big blind spots, and you need somebody else that's got your back and that you can trust, and that's real enough to have a conversation about what you really want. I think that's just my feeling.
So when you think about one of your burnout cycles where that was offered to you, did that happen? Where you were asked, what do you want? And you actually got to be walked through it?
Nobody ever asked me what I had to, not until just a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
when I had a coach.
Yeah.
And the kind of coach that was right for me was not long after I nearly died in the hospital. I had a terrible case of necrotizing pancreatitis, and I got septic and all the organ shutdowns and stuff that you could have. And I had an experience during that illness of a very large and responsive being who helped me through. And that's where some people will think I'm weird. But what I needed to have in terms of a coach was somebody who could have that language or that understanding that, oh, Pappas, you were psychotic. No, I tapped in to a bigger realm that we all have access to. But when I tapped into that, my world changed. And the way that I approached the problem of burnout or the problem of finding your purpose or just living a simple life with your family and your dog and your beautiful yard like you've got back there. What I saw, I needed somebody that had a spiritual understanding. And I don't mean religion. I mean an appreciation of the formless nature that we are, and then we express as a human being in all our biological wonderment and mental, emotional, everything else. So I maybe the coach that I needed wasn't prepared yet for me, and I needed to muck around for a while and do.
Tell us then what it looks like to have a coach or somebody walk you through burnout differently. What was it that you needed? What do you do now, perhaps, that is more helpful, more effective for that physician who's in the middle of this sucks?
One of the best questions that I have ever been asked, and it's going to sound kind of funky, but it's, Pam, I've been describing whatever I've been describing and haranguing over this person and that person there. This is unfair and blah, blah, blah. Pam, what do you see? How does it look to you to be you? And I'm kind of going, everything just stopped. And that meant that my intellect, crazy spaghetti thought thing that I would have 24/7 didn't know what to do with that question. And I think that most doctors who are devoted, learned, experienced, haven't been asked that question, because how something looks to you might be very different from how I see it. And recognizing that we have separate realities, in a sense, every one of us across the planet, then realizing that that's going on, that can take a whole lot of heat off and go, oh, wait a minute. If that's true, then all I need to do is ask the person. And I don't have to, mind read or assume. That is burdensome enough to think, oh my, I've got to think ahead for this patient and not ever bother them by asking them, what do they see? What's important to you? I needed somebody to care for my answer. And to provide the space and the time for me to partially not know or to be bamboozled by that. When my mind just sort of stopped and didn't know what to say, the coach let me be. And so this is not what happens in typical medical world, is it?
No.
Hurry up, productivity, all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So the coaching space gave you more time. It gave you somebody to listen to that answer. And
Mhm.
then what? So what happens when you understand that answer? I remember being asked, what are your top 3 feelings at work? And when I sat down and thought about what they were, this was kind of one of the first questions I was asked. I'm like, well, it ain't good, it ain't pretty in there.
Right. So facing your feelings.
But even that question of what does it look like to be you may be a terrible story, right?
Well,
So it's not going to
hang on,
necessarily
hang
be
on. What
helping.
does it look like to be you versus what does it feel like from the
Mm,
inside of you,
mm,
going around and doing what you do and
mm.
seeing what you see, and this comparison to other people, which is nuts, and the misunderstanding of how deeply our experience is created through the power of thought. It's an energy. It's a very powerful ongoing thing. It can change quickly, but we're not shown that in medicine. We're not shown that it's okay to have different experiences. Like, oh, what stresses you out is, well, for me, that one's not so bad, but here, this one really sucks. And you're kind of going, you have a problem with that, it, uh so I would say people need to be appreciated for the amazing individuals that they are, and to realize that they can think whatever they want and move in a direction that either brings further peace or further the opposite.
Okay, so once we've got the story out of you of what does it look like to be you, or how's it feeling to be you,
There.
we're allowing that to be a real and lived experience for you. And then we're starting to look at and what do you desire and where do you want to go?
Yeah.
So that was the transition.
What, yeah, once you, like, when you were asked, what are your top 3 feelings at work? And maybe I'm guessing that they were not so pleasant.
No, it's kind of like dread and frustration and anger. There was occasional joy,
Yeah. No,
which is not
oh,
a
I
pretty
guess
place to be.
I need to make it. I need to make a change, right?
Well,
Um,
I could continue in this space, but it's not good and healthy for me, and I'm not enjoying life at that point, right? So it's that when you're asked these sort of questions, it brings up a lot of things. But then what do you do with those things? So you've got this enlightenment, you're sitting there listening to this podcast, driving along, going, well, I get dread and guilt and fear about work. Now what? What do I do with that? Now that I recognize it, I'm like, okay, my lived experience isn't good. Do I need to
right now,
move?
right
What
now, and that's a reason why a lot of people, a lot of our colleagues suppress those feelings,
mm,
because, oh my God, I've got 600 grand of educational loans to pay off. So if I can, if I can just pay that off, then I can ask myself what I want.
okay. Okay, so it's
Uh,
the further deferring joy. I'll suffer through this some more until I pay off this or until I have that. We see that so much in medicine.
Well,
I can
yeah, because
persevere through
it'll
this.
be better when you're a second year medical student or a resident or a chief resident or a real life attending, and not realizing that, you get to create your life and the way that you work and relate and lead, all of
Mm,
those things. But we're not shown that.
mm,
I mean, they don't, we don't take time, and I'm going to include myself in the medical culture because. I have been there and I'm questioning it. And okay, so what do you do with it once you realize, oh man, I don't like the way I'm feeling 24/7? Then you go, all right, what do you want? And people are scared about that because then they might have to make some changes in the physical world. Talk to their spouse, I know we've got this educational loan we're paying off, and maybe I can get in a loan forgiveness program, but I cannot be sustainable in this position. You see how crotchety and nasty I am when I come home from work. And so if you got a spouse or a partner that values you, they will hear you and they will say, okay, well, what do we do? And we can
Mm,
work together. And not everybody's got that kind of a situation.
mm.
So it can be scary business to get down to bedrock about this. But yeah,
How,
that's
how does
that's what
coaching
what
help?
I think burnout is. That it's time to get to it's a transformation point. It's
Mm.
not a dead end.
Well, that's good. How do we transform that though? Do we have to leave? Or is there ways
No.
to make a change at where we are from your perspective?
Oh, I I think we can always make changes where we are. Eh, so I've been coaching, primarily coaching physicians since about 2011. And I've seen that most of them can transform the job or the position that they have into something that is better aligned with their ideal, or what they really, that question of, well, what do you want?
Hmm.
What would you love to have, or how would it be? And it's a combination of life and work. It's not only what happens in the office or in the OR.
Mm.
So about 70% of them are able to negotiate or retweak or whatever they're doing. But there's 30% that I've seen that they decide, you know what, I need a different position. And there's a process for that that starts from really getting serious and curious about what it is that my heart longs for now. And some will say, well, there's not that's impossible. I can't possibly find a position like that. Well, I've seen a lot of people find positions like that, or they create a different way of approaching and doing what they're doing. And what you said earlier in this conversation is it's definitely not all in the externals. A job at a certain geographic location and only gives, like, 20 patients a day versus 80. you know I mean, those are important features, but that ain't all.
Yeah, yeah. So we have that reflection about what's going on, whether it be what does life look like for you, how are you feeling about this, then you start to have choice. So I think that holding someone there to help you navigate that can be so
Mhm.
helpful, whether it be an other colleague, whether it be a coach, whether it be your other half, just saying, now what? What is the
Well,
choice you're having that you can have right now where you are? And what
mhm.
else? What are the possibilities? What is the infinite possibilities? What do you need to feel better, to feel different, to get things that you're desiring?
This is an iterative process, at least with me. And there's the actual conversations you have, but then there's coming away from the conversation, and you're in the shower and something pops into your head. That insight or realization can happen. And that's a capacity, again, that we all have, but we suppress it. We don't realize it because we're running around so quickly. And maybe you got a, little, what they call little kids, and they need what they need, of course. And uh it can be hard to squeeze in that quiet reflection time. But showers are good, that usually it'll come out. If that insight that's popping up comes in a good feeling, a peaceful feeling, not it's a feeling that you have. It's an inner knowing that, what, this is I really want to do palliative medicine. I've had people that I've helped them, move over into a new residency program, even if they were like, 20 years into their career. Why did they want that? Well, I'm more curious about the spiritual nature of living, paired with what we are as protoplasm, all the neurohormonal cascades that happen biologically. But these people in this kind of world, they're asking big questions about what is life? Why am I here? What and I think that this pathway is gonna be more productive or feel more like me. So what do? They have an insight. They come back. We talk about it. I said, okay, so what would it take to move into that? And then they start doing, research or what programs are available. What would that be like for them? Is it 1 year, 2 years? So would you have a reduced salary? How would you how would you manage? And you get down into real practical things, but the thing started from a spiritual insight. That's where the power is, and people think that's woo, and it's not practical, but it's the guts of where we live. That's got to be online.
Yeah. Well, all change is hard, so we need a reason to desire different, because it's going to take a lot of energy to do anything different. Even if it's just staying where you are to make change, takes an energy. Yeah, yeah. Tell us about wisdom informed. You have this wisdom informed. Tell us more. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of talk about trauma informed coaching or therapy or medicine. And I value that, because people are more and more curious about what has been our response to horrific things that have happened to us. But the focus is like on what's your ACE score, and how many horrific experiences did you have as a kid, and tallying that all up. And if you have more than 4, you could end up with high risk of physical illness and mental and emotional illness. And that's important. But people forget that we have an innate wisdom that resides on a spiritual level. And again, spiritual, not religious, but that we are all part of, only we express differently. So what I work with people on, and some of them say, well, this sounds religious to me. And I say, well, okay, I get it that you think that. Where's the dogma in what I'm saying? Where is the required practice in what I'm saying? Oh, I guess that's not. I mean, you mean I could be as I am and see things as I do, and that's all right. Yeah, because what they have become through that wisdom is wisdom informed, and then that informs what their intellect works on. What their intellect is, what's important there. You don't jettison all your skills and all your seminars that you've been to and all your certifications that are on your wall, but you realize that there is something that's probably billions of times more powerful that's behind and before all that. And if you are attentive to that beingness in yourself, solving the issues on an intellectual level or on a physical level is going to go a whole lot more smoothly. You're going to be a lot clearer about what it is that you really want and not be, running around chasing bright, shiny objects and getting distracted from what you really want.
Is there a way that you help people tap into their inner wisdom?
Yeah, I sure do. I through conversations I do, there's readings, there's videos that I watch. I also for some offer an inner counselor process that gives them a direct experience of that huge resource in themselves that they don't recognize in their day-to-day chart reviews and all of that. But they can come away in not too long of a time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe a little longer, with, oh my God, I didn't realize that I had all that going on. And it's good stuff. It's not like, oh man, you you've probably seen images of like an iceberg, you know, and it's presented like, okay, here's the iceberg that we can see, all the ways we behave and all of that, and underneath that iceberg is all this fomenting crap, all your neuroses and conflicts, and that's the way it looks. Well, I flip that differently. There is the iceberg of what we see, but underneath the water is not negative stuff. It's like all the strengths, all the attributes, all the gifts, all the creativity, all the energy that is possible. It's going along all the time. It's with you all the time, but you just, we if we don't notice it, it's okay, well, I'm still helping you out. So
Okay.
that's what the wisdom informed is about. Does that help any?
It does. Yes, I think I understand it now. That's very helpful because it wasn't a term I'd necessarily come across, and it's nice to have you explain what that means. How do people find you if they're looking to learn more, Pam?
Well, I am revising my website, but they can go to Dr. Pam, Pam Pappas, Pappas.com, and you can see what I have put together. Again, it's changing, but also there's an email address associated with that, Dr. Pam at drpampappas.com, if they are interested in what I call a wake-up call, you know, to come to terms with what's going on and be heard and articulate, maybe for the first time, some of these things that you're kind of referring to in the questions that you've asked me today. And we can take a look at that and see what it is that you want. And if you want to work together further or not, either way is fine.
And is there anything we didn't talk about that we should talk about before we end?
Anything that we didn't, well, I think that mind body medicine is cool. I'm a consultation liaison psychiatrist and integrative person, certified in, integrative and holistic medicine. And yet we have not paid enough attention to the spirituality piece and in our health. We work on exercise and nutrition, which are important. We work on emotional nature, but that spiritual stuff, people kind of go, but that's where the power is. And getting in tune with your own sense of something larger than yourself that moves you, that can take an awful lot of the burden off of people that are working very hard. Because what you got to realize is that your patients have that too. only we forget that.
Well, thank you so much, Pam, for this conversation. And hopefully the listeners out there can start to understand what it could look like to do some self-reflection and some tapping into their deeper wisdom. So love that. Thank you.
Thank you again for the conversation. I appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, if you found this podcast episode helpful, I would encourage you to like and subscribe. Every time you do, you help a colleague or friend find our podcast, and it can help them too. Don't forget to share it along with your friends. If you're looking for extra help, don't forget we have Charting Champions for physicians and Smarter Charting for nurse practitioners and other clinicians to help you get home with your work done. We are helping you create sustainable clinical medicine. Thanks for listening.